So as one could imagine, this could all not fit into one video. So this is going to be part 1 with everything wrong with UFC 4. And we're going to be going after 1, the offline play criticism, and a bunch of the little things in between, you know, that kind of just take away from the experience. And then part 2, which is a big portion of this video, the clinch, the grappling. Now, I don't necessarily have to cover over the way things work on the ground with the concept of denials and everything. We've gone over this for the last 3-4 years now that the games have been out. Since UFC 2, even though I wasn't playing that game as much with the way I played UFC 3, you know, we've gone over like the lack of positions. We're missing this, and that. I don't have to repeat that stuff. I have to just go after what did EA decide to do with this game that we spent 2 years waiting for this, and it still feels like an unfinished product. What exactly did they do? And on top of that, what did they mislead us on? And the first thing is going to be coming to career mode in UFC 4. That's one of the biggest things that really has just disappointed the player base. When career mode was introduced with all the screenshots, we were told that we were going to have this Coach Davis who was going to be on our side. It was going to be an interactive experience, but we were a little bit more savvy this time. We knew in UFC 3 they finagled us. They told us that, oh yeah, we're going to be doing these press conferences. We're going to be able to talk in them. No, it was just cutscenes. We had no control over what our person does. Our person barely speaks when we're playing career mode. And if you take a look right here in the menu, it's the same thing. It's severely lacking immersion. You're still doing the same, you know, I'll say quest, for example. You're still doing the same things over and over again, and it just really ruins. It's just a long grind, and it's just really nothing is going to keep you there. I haven't really touched career mode in a long time other than just opening it up today. So another thing too, all of these like little gimmicks with rewards, I guess it's like kind of like the Fortnite approach, trying to get at a younger audience, but this is just extremely tedious. You have all these rewards, and somebody has to go and collect these things one by one. You're going to tell me in 2021 we don't have the option to collect all our rewards at once? Really? We don't have that option? Top of that, they took away, you know, fighter walkouts before our fights. They gave us emotes when the ref is asking us, fighter, are you ready? You know, right before the fight. And when have you ever seen that? No, you don't see that. It just doesn't happen. And in between fights, it forces you to watch the person. If you lost, you're forced to watch the guy celebrate on you. So it's just a lot of resources spent on these things that don't really enhance gameplay. It gives you this idea, oh yeah, this is all really cool and flashy, but there's just not a lot of substance when it comes to the gameplay. So now we're going to go criticize this. Now I'm going to be going back and forth from UFC 3 to 4 just to show you what exactly that we lost in the process of UFC 4, and it makes no sense. In single collar in UFC 4, it's not neutral for both fighters, and I'll explain that very shortly. We have no tie clinch entry. We don't even have a manual over-under input. You have to do 2 specific things to get to over-under, really 3. And there's no double unders anywhere. Now against the cage, not in open space, nada. Like, for them to remove something that's a basic entry, as you can see right here, in a fight, you know, people, they go and they search for hooks, they get an overhook, and then they get into over-under. For example, single collar in UFC 4, it is extremely dominant, right? Look at the way they have Jan's head. It's just, you're already kind of conceding position. You're not really doing anything. If you want to get into over-under on your feet, you know, you got to slip to the inside of a cross, stance dependent, or you can bail off of a takedown. And that's 2 ways. And they give you an automatic body lock to wrap around your opponent, which doesn't necessarily make you helpless in real life if they just have a body lock wrapped around you, if you know what you're doing with your hands. And of course, if you want to get back clinch, you duck underneath a strike. Another extremely specific thing to do that doesn't even work too consistently. So let's get a little thorough breakdown on the whole single collar tie situation. So right here in single collar, UFC 3, I can strike back. This game, I can strike back, but I'm actually limited into what I can do. The dominant person here, who's Aldo right now, right? I can throw uppercuts, I can throw clinch elbows, I can go for takedowns, I could take you in a tie clinch, but there's a catch. But the sub fighter, they can't even throw knees from this position. They can't shoot a takedown of their own. They can't re-pummel into over-under. All of that got taken away by the Dom fighter. For some reason, a position that's not necessarily that strong. And it should not be as strong as it is. If you throw a knee with the dominant fighter, you are automatically granted die clinch, and the sub fighter cannot repummel. There's nothing you can do other than punch back and back up, which, by the way, puts you at risk of being close to the cage where the person can kind of clinch you again. The clinch is undeniable in this game. In theory, that's a good idea. You know, I understood what they were going with the clinch being undeniable. But when you have the clinch be so dominant, like in this facet, it makes absolutely no sense. How can you take away what fighters can do in a position that's not that dominant? In the concept of denials and the concept of like framing, putting your pressure up against somebody so they can't knee you to the face. I'm gonna go press forward against Aldo here with Jan, and I'm still gonna be able to get kneed in the face. And then what I'm going to do is pull up some in real life fight examples of these exact situations, and you're gonna see it and be like, what? So look right here. I'm going to pull up Justin Gaethje versus Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson does not lose the ability to throw knees in sub-thigh clinch. He's not helpless there. He can go forward and try to crowd Gaethje, and he could throw his own strikes there. He's not just limited to backing up and throwing punches and, you know, hoping he doesn't get caught up against the cage to where he can get taken down or whatever. Here, Robbie Lawler's put in a very devastating tie clinch from Rafael dos Anjos. So what he does is he crowds Rafael dos Anjos so there's no space for his opponent to throw any knees to his head. You see, now RDA has to throw to the body. That doesn't work in UFC 4. It simply does not work. And when they get to the cage, Lawler tries to repummel, RDA frames out, and boom, situation's done. So in UFC 4, it grants the advantage to whoever initiates first, and it's a heavy advantage. A lot of people like to say stuff about 50-50, 50-50 this. It's much worse than that. 50-50 implies that both parties are able to do something. 50-50 is pretty much the entire game. You know, you block low, you block high, right? That's the same thing with takedowns. You try to go for a single under counter in the clinch, if somebody clinches you, that's fine. That thing isn't consistent. If the guy throws a knee, you're probably going to eat the knee, and then you're still free to get clinched again. Right? And that's the real issue. That's the real issue. Taking away what the sub fighter can do in positions that are relatively neutral in real life. And that's what severely hurts this game. Because in theory, undeniable clinch was a good idea. But at this point, you might as well add a denial if this is how bad it's going to be for the sub fighter once you get clinched. It's not fair. So in UFC 4, they also limit over-under tremendously. Not for just the sub fighter, but also for the dom fighter as well, with regards to how it works realistically. Now, as a dom fighter, you can do all the moving around, right? But as a sub fighter, I'm trying to move with Jan right now. I can't do nothing. I can only go backwards. That's the only thing I can do. I can defend a takedown, and for some reason, some of those takedowns, it results in auto breaks. Right? If I bail on the takedown and I throw a clinch strike, it automatically breaks from the clinch. Even though maybe I didn't want to break from the clinch. Maybe I just want to throw a cheeky little strike like Leon Edwards and stay right in there until I want to break with an elbow. No, the game decides for me, no, you're going to break the clinch off of this strike. And that really removes a lot of creativity, right? We can see this sequence here from Henry Cejudo versus Demetrius Johnson. He throws a knee. It does not result in a break. He frames out against the leg, and he hits a beautiful inside trip in that, you know, in that fight, in that rematch. And you can't do that on UFC 4. You can't do it because the game is going to decide that you're going to auto break. But overall, the advantage favors the dom. You know, the dom can bail to the back. He can strike. The sub fighter has to play defense. You know, they open up the window. I can deny that off of reaction, switching orders and whatnot. But you have to play defense 9 times out of 10 when you're the sub fighter, especially if you don't know how to hit the single under counter or the over under trip counter. If your fighter even has that. And that's just a deadly situation for the game. So now let me show you something with UFC 3, right? EA had this in place, and they definitely could have just carried on from this. I don't agree with, you know, having to deny somebody's break. I think the break should be free, you know, by using locomotion and movement. It's good. But I don't know why they couldn't just blend the two together, right? Both fighters right here in single collar, they have access to their takedowns and their strikes to what they can do, right? Like Aldo has his outside trip because, you know, he's a Dutch kickboxing, Muay Thai type of guy. Frankie Edgar has his leg grab, right? You can throw clinch knees to the leg, you know, try to work the legs a little bit. You know, you've seen Usman does stuff like that. The body knees do not result in automatic tie clinch in this position. You know, if both fighters are able to work here, and it's fair. Even if I initiate the clinch first, it's relatively fair. You know, we saw it against Sterling and Jan. You know, the sub fighter, even in tie clinch on UFC 3. Right? And this is a game, I don't give this game compliments often, but look, not only can I punch back, right? If I had two controls, I'd be able to frame off against those knees, but I could foot stomp back, interrupt the dominant fighter. I can also throw my own knees back, kind of like what Michael Johnson was doing. and then I could re-pummel into single collar, so I'm not screwed here and I don't have to only back up. That's not the case on UFC 4, and that's what severely hurts the clinch. What's a great idea is it just falls apart 7 months later down the line once people understood how it works. Over-under on 3, it simply does not limit the other fighter, right? Even though I'm an over-under, they have their respective options, right? Now, UFC 4 is, it's fluid. It's very fluid, but, in this situation right here, Frankie and Aldo, they both have their respective takedowns. Frankie with the hip toss, because, a lot of wrestlers like to hit their hip tosses and whatnot. And, Aldo with the judo throw. And, the locomotion isn't as good. I'll give him that, right? The locomotion is very stagnant here. But in terms of options and fairness, and just the neutrality of the position, even if Frankie Edgar would have a body lock in this position, right, you could easily just make it, hey, hold your left stick back, you're going to frame out against the thigh of the person who has the body lock wrapped around you, and you can hit your own takedown. Henry Cejudo did against Demetrius Johnson. Demetrius Johnson had a body lock wrapped around him from double unders. Cejudo backed up, created no space, and hit his own inside trip. So what's the reason? See, right here, even in double unders, which we don't have in the game, some fighters were able to have their own takedowns that they can initiate from there. So there was no reason to take that ability away from the sub fighter. Another position that's severely hurt by this, right, is back clinch, right? It severely limits the sub fighter. You can't pummel, you can't strike. Your only two options are going to be to go forward, where you risk getting put up against the cage, right? And if you have the Kimura in your arsenal, then you can go for the Kimura. But if you give up the first stage, you end up giving up north-south. If you lose it later in the stage, you end up giving up full mount. So is it really worth going for? And it's just that easy. Once somebody gets your back, it's the fall of the position, how the position works. And I've asked, we need to add this in. This was already in the previous game, and they have yet to do so for whatever reason. And it's just absurd. So we'll show right here. UFC 3, again, slower clinch, I understand. I can work here, but Frankie has the option to turn right back in, re-pummel, and go into over-under. That's all. Yeah, he has a rear standing. Yes, he has a very dominant position. We saw this in action. We've seen this in action plenty of times if you're an avid MMA fan. But it doesn't mean that you're stuck here. And the sub fighter, if they're good enough, if they have good hips, they're going to be able to try and break out. You can also strike back. Look, you can do your own reverse Kamaru Usman foot stomps. You can hit back with an elbow and tag the fighter. Do at least something that's going to interrupt them from their action. And that action is simply not there in UFC 4. And if you give up back clinch, you're going to have to worry about A, somebody getting a backpack on you, and then you risk giving up back sitting, and we'll cover that. Or you end up risk giving up a takedown. You might end up in backside, which is dangerous position. And in UFC 4, cage OU, over under, double unders, tie, single collar, that's gone. That's gone. Once you get put up against the cage, you have pretty much two options, right? You can defend the takedown. You better hope they don't go for the back take, because now you have to worry about the backpack. But you have to basically just try to frame with the left stick and escape. They have a cool little thing going on here, you got to fight for hand control, but it doesn't really matter when a guy can just kind of just turn and then get to your back, and now you have to play, all right, which one works, right? Even for the Dom fighter here, right? If you stop a takedown early, you are automatically granted a reversal of the position, which just isn't realistic. In UFC 3, if the guy stopped your takedown, you're fighting that position. We saw against Usman versus Masvidal. We've seen it Sterling versus Jan, from round 2. They're holding that double there, and then they're trying to work the position. It doesn't just simply, both fighters are active in that position, trying to work defensively and offensively and trying to create space to score whatever takedown. And the sub fighter here, again, I've been saying this a lot through this entire video, extremely limited. In this position here, when Khabib fought RDA had him there for a second, and Khabib hip tossed the hell out of him. I asked about sub counter takedowns, takedowns for the submissive fighter. And that's just not there. It's not there. You're going to be forced not only to play defense against strikes, takedowns, but also an impending back take. Way worse than a 50-50. It's way worse than that. And it's just a little cycle, a little loop, and it's going to be extremely taxing. It's extremely, extremely taxing. Then not only that, there's also turning takedowns you have to be worried about from here. And I can't rip pummel. I can't hit back right here once they take my back here against the cage. I can't hit him with a cheeky little elbow. I can't do anything else other than, defend a takedown and then create space like that. But for UFC 4, for them to take away basic stuff in the grappling against the cage, if it's to cater to casuals, they barely understand how to manage stamina. You think they're going to care whether you remove this and that? This is probably still complicated to them if you try to simplify it for the casuals. What makes the depth of your player base are the people that actually stick around and play this game. The guys are still playing it now, not just buying the game just to, oh yeah, I'm going to buy it because it's a new game on the block and I'm going to go drop it and play some Warzone right after. And to do that to your own community after they've definitely expressed, hey, we want more realistic MMA scenarios in our game and less, arcadey stuff. This is not the way you treat your community. So why did EA remove those positions? Well, it goes back to what I said. It's because of casual play. Look, right here in UFC 3, we had single collar. And if Frankie has single collar here, Aldo also had single collar here. And Frankie, he could get a free break because his back is into the open space. I don't necessarily get a free break, but I also have the option to put him into tie clinch. I also have the option to repummel into over-under. Now, there's the inside trips available for Frankie, but I can repummel into over-under. I can stop a takedown, and the position doesn't stop. Even right here, if I put Frankie in tie clinch, right? What does Frankie have? Frankie has a single leg that he can go for. There's so many positions, so many little tiny positions against a cage. This game would be a lot better if they just simply brought back these positions. Hell, you can look manual input into over-under. If you want to channel your inner Kamaru Usman, you should be able to do that. I don't understand. I simply do not understand why they would remove these positions. Even watch the back clinch here, right? I get double unders as a sub fighter. Now I've earned the right to reverse the position. It doesn't just freely get given to me. And that's the part that really irks me. It's either all the way in or it's all the way out. It's either you have this or it's just not going to simply work. You can reverse a single collar position as well. And they had this in place. And yes, you can't really move too much here. It's very stagnant. You can mix up this with the left stick. I guarantee you can. With a couple suggestions in, you can mix up having all these positions, all this fun stuff, and then you still have a great game. Removing these positions and taking away what a fighter is able to do is just not the way to go about this game, and it severely hurts not only the grappling, but the whole experience of MMA for this game. So right here, this is another complaint that a lot of people have had. There's no more elbows in ground and pound. Yeah, there's no elbows in ground and pound in UFC 4. UFC 3, we had elbows in ground and pound, right? Because they elected to give us a system where you got the slip or frame against a strike. Oh, and you can't throw any body crosses either. But if you haven't realized, you see that arm trap animation? These are the sweeps. These are all the sweeps and reversals that you see in UFC 4. They aren't new stuff. We've always had this stuff. And they just decided to use it for reversals. And the worst part is almost anyone could do it. I remember in UFC 3, not everybody had the same access to the same arm traps and reversals. UFC 4, everybody does. From Conor McGregor to CM Punk, they can reverse you into top mount if they time a specific slip or a frame. If they get you to back sitting, and then they can hit you with a rear naked choke. And we're going to get on the subs. Believe me, we're going to get on the subs. But yeah, that's the card that we deal with here when it comes to the GMP. And it's just, to simplify the ground and pound that much and take away the will of the fighter, it's just crazy. So now we're here in Stat Guard. I remember Anderson Silva versus Sonnen. Sonnen was winning. He was beating Silva. And it just took one little mistake for Sonnen, and Silva was able to get an armbar. You can't even do that as a sub fighter. There's no sub counter as a sub fighter when somebody's going for the ground and pound. You're forced to play this mini game, and really only the Dom fighter has the option to go for submission if they have you stunned. Crazy, right? From the moment that I posture up here with Aldo, Jan has to wait for either my stamina to be hit a specific point so he can do an action. That's pretty much it. So, sub defense and sub offense does not matter on UFC 4. It's crazy. But on UFC 3, if you were going against an Ortega or you went against maybe a Nate Diaz, right? You're going to that fight like, I cannot be in this guy's guard, right? There are certain fighters, if they got you in guard, you weren't really worried about it. And I'm just going to prove it right here. I'm going to prove it with some facts right here, right? I'm going to get a lot of denials on Brian Ortega right here. and I'm going to go for submission with Duho Choi. And Duho Choi has 84 submission offense. So this is a very significant advantage in stamina, right? He has a 4-stage armbar. The stages, I don't miss that, right? But even though I have this really crazy strong advantage right here with the stamina, Ortega's able to get out and relatively easily, I may add, right? But if I'm in Ortega's guard, right? And just to show you this, I'm going to get 1 denial with Ortega. Just 1 denial. Actually, no. First, I'm going to show you the 2 gate. That's one thing I don't necessarily miss. But just to show you how fast these gates move for Ortega. Right? That's it. It's a wrap. You just took that much. Because the stats, there's so much of a disparity between the 2 fighters' stats and their respective ability to do stuff that it makes them different. Not on UFC 4. If you try to go for rear naked choke with either one of these 2 gentlemen, it's going to go and progress at the same exact speed. I promise you. You get 1 denial with CM Punk, it's like you have Damian Maia. It's like you're using Damian Maia on somebody's back. And I'm going to show you right here. Right? I'm going to nail denial. And then after I get this denial, I'm going to go for the triangle choke. Look at the stamina. But due to the stats of Brian Ortega and his perks, look how fast the gates are moving. I barely have a stamina advantage here. But that's because I'm using Brian. And his stats actually matter. That's simply not the case on UFC 4. And it's another issue that people have with the grappling. Everybody has an issue with this. Doesn't matter who you are. Anyone can sub anybody. Shout out to my boy Haim the Dream for showing a video of this too. So right here, right, we're going to go to the GMP minigame. Slip. Get a back take, right? That's not even a crazy big stamina advantage right there. When you initiate the submission, you know, you're sneaking it in there. It takes a little bit of stamina. It takes a good amount of stamina, right? But this is not a crazy advantage, right? So it's a new mini game, and the sub stats don't matter. Jan has like, what, 84 sub offense? Look how fast the submit bar is going. Even if I have it like a little bit right here, it's still going extremely fast. And look how fast he's progressing through the position. Like he's Brian Ortega. Like he's Damian Maia. Like he's Gilbert Burns. Like he's Ronaldo Souza. Like it's crazy. The stats don't matter. It's about the position. The position matters more than the fighter's individual stats. Get that through your head. That's extremely messed up. Extremely. And this is going to be the final part for this part 1 video. The takedown defense, all that stat takedown defense, this takedown offense, this. The way I like to logically explain, right? If you have lower takedown defense, right? And then you don't use technique as well to defend takedowns, right? As a result of that, you're going to expend more energy trying to defend takedowns. As a result of that, you should definitely lose more stamina. And I mean, like, think of Khabib versus somebody else who's not really defending his takedowns. Think of him versus Abel Cerrillo, right? Even Abel defending initial takedowns, he just couldn't defend them after a certain amount of time, right? Because his defense wasn't that good. Now you look at Jan versus Sterling, and Jan has a good head-hand hips defense, and he was making Sterling pay for those takedown attempts. But watch it. I'm going to use CM Punk. Usman has probably the highest, almost the highest level of takedowns. I'm just going to change up the stats real quick. So make sure that it changes direction with the AI. I'm going to deny Usman's takedowns relatively easily. Before, the stats will matter with regards to the speed, the range on the takedowns. It doesn't matter. As long as I time this denial, it doesn't matter I have 83 takedown defense. Look at that. 83 takedown defense. Man, you might as well call me CM Aldo. I'm good here. It does not matter. Look at the long-term drain too on Usman. For somebody who has high-level takedowns going against somebody with 83 takedown defense, I have a long-term stamina advantage lead here, right? You're a NTA champ versus my 83 takedown defense? Psst, it doesn't mean nothing, brother. As long as I time that denial right, my stat does not matter. It does not affect me in any way. And it also, on the flip side of that, it took them about 7 months to actually affect the long-term drain on stamina for failed takedowns, for failed non-setup, somebody shooting on you over and over again. Like before, that wouldn't really drain Ferguson as much as it has right here, right? It took them 7 months to do that. So it just begs the question, right? Are they focused on, yes, they fixed a lot of stuff, but it seems like every single time that they fix something, there's something else that needs to get fixed. And it's not like we haven't asked for that. So that being said, you know, the game so far is alright. It got a lot of work to do. And I don't want to see something like this repeating on UFC 5. And I still have yet to go over the striking. And that's going to be the big whammy. But this is part 1 to everything wrong with UFC 4. With regards to, a little bit of the offline stuff and the grappling. Personally, how I feel about it. Part 2 will be coming out maybe in a few days. Maybe could be a little bit sooner. But as always, Mero 17. Like, share, comment, subscribe if you already haven't. Your boy's out of here.